Welcome, everybody. I am putting the stream text. You can ignore the breakout room stream text for now, but I'm putting the stream text link in the chat. We're going to get started. We're going to have a few more folks coming in, but I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So thank you so much for joining us for our Disability Mentoring Day orientation. My name is Gabi Reyes Acosta. I am a young brown skinned person with short, wavy brown hair. I'm wearing glasses and I have I'm wearing green glasses and I have a blue striped shirt on. So thank you so much for coming. We're going to start with some housekeeping before we get into our agenda. I just want to review access features. We have ASL interpretation, and if you would like that to be spotlit, just let me know. We also have our captions available. You can click the CC box at the bottom of the screen on Zoom, or you can follow the stream text link. If you joined after I put it in, I will put it in one more time, and you can use the stream text link if that's helpful. We are going to be doing some slides today. I will go through them. If you need a copy of the slides, you should have received it in your email, but let me know. I can send it on over to you again. If you have questions or any other concerns, you can always ask them in the chat. We have tech support supporting us today. Thanks, Sapphire. I'll go ahead and do that. Or April, if you could let me spotlight. There we go. Um, thank you, Sapphire. So we have our ASL interpreter spotlit, and we're going to use primarily the raise hand feature. If you have a question, I see a hand right now. So tech support, we will get to you in just a second. And if you do speak or unmute, please share a quick visual description for accessibility purposes. April, I see a hand.
Hi, Gabi. This is April. Could you actually make me co-host so I can manage your spotlights?
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
You know, April, it looks like I have this tech support account listed as co-host. Is
Oh,
it?
sorry. Could you make it a host feature?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. I'll switch you to co-host.
Okay, cool. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. If you just arrived, I'm going to put the stream text in one more time so that you can use it if that is helpful. And then we're going to share our slides. Again, thank you so much for coming to our Disability Mentoring Day orientation. This orientation is recorded. We are not going to include the breakout room session in the recording, and that's just for informational purposes for folks who could not make today's event. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Again, if you have any questions, leave it in the chat. We will have time for you to ask questions about DMD, Disability Mentoring Day, as we go through this. So if you have questions, there's a good chance that we will answer them. And there's also a great chance that we will have time to go over it together. So I'm going to share. My screen is sharing now, and it is a white background. On the left of the screen is an illustrated image of a young person sitting in a chair at a computer. Behind them is another person, presumably an adult, who's standing over them, and another person standing next to them, and they're all looking at the computer screen. On the right is the text Disability Mentoring Day Orientation, or DMD. You'll hear me refer to them both interchangeably. So if I'm ever saying DMD, I'm always talking about Disability Mentoring Day. And today is, it also lists our date and time. So today, August 19th, and our facilitator is me, Gabi Reyes Acosta, and my pronouns are she, they. I'm a programs manager here at AAPD, so I support our DMD program. I also support our NBC Universal Tony Coelho Media Scholarship and AAPD's Alumni Network. So if you are part of AAPD in another way, I might interact with you. And I'm just really excited to have all of you on. So thank you so much for joining. Our, we're going to move over and look at our agenda. So we will be doing introductions, which I just did. We'll have time for us to kind of break the ice together. You can use the chat if you do not want to share out. We will then move on to talking a little bit of background about Disability Mentoring Day, the history of it, what we're looking for in the future, how it can grow, and how you can be a part of that growth. And we'll also talk about some examples and best practices of DMD. We'll do a Q&A and resource share time for you to share with each other and ask in the larger group any questions you have as you kind of figure out what this event can look like for you and for your community. And then we'll close out and we'll have some follow-up information and links that I will share out. Any information that I share here, I will also share in a follow-up email. So do not worry if you miss anything or if you need any notes. I'm happy to send all of that afterwards, and you can always reach out to me directly and I can connect with you, send you anything that you may have missed. So we're going to move on. Our next slide is a warm-up question slide. It says warm-up question at the top. Inside the slide are three kind of amorphous blobs, and inside of those shapes are um, are prompts. And so what I'm asking everyone today is to think back. I'm going to read what's in the prompt, and I can also put this text in the chat, but I'm asking everyone to think back about to when you were a young person. That can be high school, it can be college student, recent grad, whatever feels authentic for you in this moment. And think about an adult mentor or a peer in your life whose interactions or relationship meant something. I said mentor, but it doesn't have to be a formal mentoring relationship. And so, what I'm asking is if you feel brave, share out using the raise hand feature or put in the chat why or how this person made an impact on you. Was it what they said? Was it what they showed or modeled to you, what they represented? I would love to hear from you. And again, if you share out, if you are going to be on camera, please make sure to share a quick visual description of yourself, your name, your pronouns, if you feel comfortable doing so, and where you're located. So I see a raised hand already. So Sapphire, take it away.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me because I have an headphone. So are we good? Can you hear me? Okay, we're good.
Gabi, you're muted.
Thank you so much. I
Just,
said Sapphire, I could hear you. You are slightly muffled.
okay, hold on. Is that way better?
That is way better. This is Gabi.
Okay. All right. So, hi everybody. My name is Sapphire. You see her photos. I do not have my camera on, but if you need, I can do a visual description of the photo. Would that be okay?
This is Gabi. That would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so the photo was taken at the 2023 AAPD cohort headshot day. So it is me, a biracial, then I was in my late 20s, with a smile and my hair pulled back and my box was pulled back into a ponytail. So So, it's interesting because I think through my adulthood, I had a few mentors, I had a few people that kind of helped guide me to like where I am. But I think the most significant one was probably like right before I came to right before I came to AAPD. I was trying to find like what community meant and like what the community was supposed to be. Like I feel like as disabled people, we don't have community like a lot of other people do. Like because like we're the one place that shares with everyone. So like race, gender, class, race, gender, class, age. So like we have to be very inclusive. And like growing up, I was the person who I wasn't inclusive. Like I thought my little piece of the disability world was just fine. I didn't want to share it. I didn't want to share it with like other disabilities. I just wanted to focus on what my disability was. But then, like right before AAPD, I met a few people with like other disabilities outside my own. And like we actually had a conversation about what allyship looks like within disability and like why that is important. And like till this day, every time I talk to that person, we always talk allyship and like why allyship within disability is more important than it is outside of able-bodied and disabled people. Because it doesn't matter what we it doesn't matter what people without disabilities do. Yes. Is it helpful? Yes. Does it help us? Yes. But if we can't help each other, we're not gonna get anywhere. Okay, I'm finished.
This is Gavi. Thank you so much for sharing, Sapphire. For context for folks on the call, Sapphire was an intern with AAPD, I believe in 2023. So Sapphire, apologies if I got your year wrong, but I feel like we almost planted Sapphire because everything you shared about mentorship and just that the ability for a mentoring relationship to expand your horizons, right? To expand what you think is possible, what you think community looks like, what you think you can do. I think that is I really appreciate what you shared, Sapphire, because that is such a valuable part of mentorship. And I think the reason I ask this question is because as folks who are planning Disability Mentoring Day events, you are poised to be in that position to create relationships and opportunities for young people with disabilities to really expand what they think is possible for themselves. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. And I'm really excited for the events that folks end up building and are a part of. So I'm going to move on. If you would like to share your experience, you still can in the chat and I can read them out. So please don't hesitate to do that. I'd love to hear from you about someone who was impactful. I'm going to move on to our next slide. So our next slide is a slide with a dark orange background. There is white text at the top that says, "What is Disability Mentoring Day?" Underneath it is an oval that's about beige colored, and inside of that is text. And you can follow along with the PDF or the agenda that I emailed to you if that's helpful, but I will go ahead and just tell you a little bit about DMD. It was originally established to take place on the third Wednesday in October to coincide with the National Disability Employment Awareness Event or Awareness Month, but DMD events can happen all year and they do happen all year. So if you are raring to go and want to have one next month and you are ready, you do not need to wait for October. If learning about this event now and prepping for it next year feels better for your capacity, that is also okay. There are no rules that are saying that you have to do it in October. We really encourage you to do your DMD event at the time that works best for you. It began in 1989 with a proclamation from President Clinton, with AAPD supporting as the national coordinator until 2001. And then after the Clinton administration ended, AAPD took on the supporting role for DMD since then. DMD allows employers at its simplest form to connect with people with disabilities, specifically young people and students, as mentors and guides, showing them what is possible for one's career and professional goals. It allows disabled students and young people to learn about career possibilities and to be affirmed in the fact that all disabled people deserve access to economic stability and success and to find a profession that fulfills and excites them. And I'm going to move on and we're going to move forward. I do want to amplify Emily's comment in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing. Emily says, I have one planned on October 17th, but I'm hoping to plan more throughout the year. Emily's with the Pennsylvania Office of Vocational Rehab. So these dates are important to us and the people we serve. That's great. I'm really excited. When there are events in October, I think that always feels really exciting. So I'm really glad to hear that. What is Disability Mentoring Day? I moved forward one slide, and that is the text at the top. This is some commonly asked questions. So our first bullet point, there are 3 bullet points on this slide, is Disability Mentoring Day in person only? The answer to that question is no. DMD events can be held in person, virtually, or hybrid. We do not want you to feel limited by having events either in person or virtually or both. It is really, again, what works best for your capacity, your budgetary constraints, and what works best for you and your community, right? Virtual and hybrid events can be lower cost because you are spending less on some overhead costs like venue rentals, but that does not mean that they are always completely free, right? But they can include virtual events, seeking mentorship, and it brings in folks who may not have been able to come to an in-person event, right? So for various reasons. So I always encourage virtual events. I think they're a really great way to, especially if this is your first year planning a DMD event, to kind of get the lay of the land. Hybrid events are also really exciting. They do take preparation, and it's really important to be intentional if you're having a hybrid event. And I also will say this throughout this space together, that if you ever have questions with programmatic support, figuring out where or when to have an event or how to structure your event, that is one way that I am very excited to help and can support with. Sapphire, I see your hands raised. I'm going to get to you when I'm done with these bullets, but I just wanted to let you know that I see it. Our next bullet is, why is DMD an important program? So just like we've talked about, right? People with disabilities, we are often told in messages, both overt and subtle, that we do not have the ability to have a successful career and reach our goals, right? DMD gives mentors that space to disprove these messages and show them what is possible. And I think a lot of young people come in knowing what is possible, but needing that support and needing that push, and DMD can be a springboard for that relationship. Do you need to be, the last bullet point is, do you need to be an expert in mentorship to plan an event? And the answer is no, not at all. I am very available to support you with planning support and advice. I also think that as long as you are committed to the goal of supporting young people with disabilities in exploring their careers, in finding their passion, and in reminding them that they deserve to be able to follow those passions, you are already in a really great place to plan this event. Oh, I see in the chat. Hi, Sapphire. Yes, I can definitely send the slides after the meeting, and you might check your inbox because I think I sent them to you before. But if you don't have them, I can send them for sure. We're going to move on to our next slide. If there are any questions, again, feel free to use the raise hand feature or write it in the chat. So our next slide is a white slide. It says Disability Mentoring Day Goals at the top. Oh, okay, great. I will definitely send it. Sorry, y'all, if you did not get a copy. And in this white slide, there are several different ovals. Each oval has text inside of them. There's 5 of them. The first one says that the Disability Mentoring Day goals, one of our first ones, is to promote disability as a central component of diversity recruitment for a more inclusive workforce. The second goal is to increase confidence among students and job seekers with disabilities. And a third is to disprove stereotypes about hiring people with disabilities. Fourth is enhancing internship and employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And we say that because oftentimes people can walk out of these mentorship relationships or a DMD event and they have formed a connection. They have networked, and maybe there's a possibility of folks finding an internship or some next steps, maybe even a position. I think it's really important to name that that is not a, it's not, we are not a career fair. DMD is not designed to necessarily support every single attendee with finding a concrete position in that space, but that can happen. And I think when it does, it's really exciting. So if it does happen at your event, please let me know. I definitely want to know if that happens. And lastly, DMD can serve as a launch pad to promote a year-round national effort to foster mentorship and career exploration. Are there any questions about this so far before we move ahead? Okay, thank you. And I will say, since it looks like some folks did not get their copy, I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat here. Just I want to make sure that if you would like to follow along, that you can. So I'm going to do that. It's just going to take 1 second. And we'll go ahead and do that. Apologies. I know it's so fun to just watch someone silently click. So we will rejoin. Okay. And I'm dropping a link to these slides in the chat. It's in the chat if you would like to follow along. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm going to move forward to our next slide. So our next slide is on a gray background. It says elements of a DMD event at the top. There is a line going through about the middle of the page, and it is winding. Along that line are 4 solid color dots. At each dot, there is a different element of a DMD event. And a small little icon to go along with it. At the first stop, the first dot, excuse me, says job shadowing. And there is a small icon of a person with a planting a flag at the top of a tiny little mountain or hill. But job shadowing is a very important part of a DMD event that can happen. If you do not have job shadowing happening at your event, that's still okay. But this is one element that can really be a powerful and interactive way to engage with the young folks who are attending with the mentees. So an example might be a company inviting a youth organization serving disabled youth to visit their facilities, tour their factories, see their offices. A real life example of this is I know that a DMD event that happened in late 2024 had students go to a hospital and they got to do job shadowing at a hospital. They even got to go up to the helipad and see where the helicopter lands and I think see the helicopter. And they had to follow around a select group of mentors. So that is an example of what job shadowing can look like at a DMD event. We also can see informational interviews at a DMD event. So an example of that might be 5 mentors from a local bank visit a high school class and meet with students in small groups, sharing their professional experiences with guided questions and asking questions of the young people so that they can learn what an interview can look like in a setting that feels safe and comfortable and low stress. Another element of a DMD event is virtual career panels. And that can look like an independent living center's teen program inviting professionals from local small businesses to discuss their tips and guidance for one's own business. So maybe you have a panel where business owners sit together and talk. Maybe there's someone who owns their own law firm, someone who has a boutique, someone who owns a I don't know why cannot think of any business right now, someone who owns a restaurant, right? And they can share in a panel setting what that experience was like for them, what they navigated, what they wish they'd known, and then they can move into a Q&A session with their mentees. Another option for another element for a DMD event is a resume workshop. And so that can just be a really great place for folks to get very tangible support on their resumes, right? So they can be in small groups or one-on-ones just to kind of learn about what a resume can and should look like. So those are some elements of a DMD event. If there are any questions, feel free to use the raise hand feature or drop them in the chat. I'm going to move on. Some examples. So I think it's really helpful if you are just starting out with DMD to kind of see what some examples can look like in your community and see what feels transferable. So one example on this slide, there is, I will describe, there's an image in the middle of a person sitting at a computer, looks like they're typing, and above them is another person looking over and looking at their computer. And I would say her expression looks happy. So some examples. Example one can be a Center for Independent Living brings 4 employees from a local business to do one-on-one mentorship activities and large group discussions with the people in their job training program. All right, so many SILs or independent living centers have training programs or programs for young folks who are transitioning to employment. And so this might be a really great option for someone who's working in that field or with that community. Another example could be a paper company who works with a youth organization to bring young people to their offices to tour the facility and engage with their mentors. A third example could be a nonprofit that serves young people with disabilities hosting a virtual career panel. So just like we talked about in our last slide with local business leaders. A fourth example could be a local library holding a DMD event where participants are paired with a mentor from a local business or library staff member to learn about their career journey and ask questions. That's an example that it really utilizes the folks who already work with the event planner to really lower costs and overhead. So I think all of these examples are really great ways to kind of see what a DMD event can look like. They may not directly transfer to your situation or your organization, but feel free to take any elements from these examples and work them for you. I'm going to move on to our next slide. I wanted to put down an example agenda of what a DMD event can look like. This is a zoomed out agenda, so it's not necessarily what is going to happen minute by minute, but it does have some minute breakdowns for an approximately 1.5 hour DMD event. So for an in-person event, you might start with an icebreaker for 5 minutes, do a 5-minute intro like we did, but you might want to have more interaction, and so you can have a more interactive activity where folks are really invited to share in small groups or large groups. And again, if you need ideas for that, I love icebreakers, so I'm always down to help. Some introductions for 5 minutes, a goal setting activity as an example. You can do SMART goals. There's a lot of other goal setting frameworks that can work for this. They can have time to reflect and close out. That's a pretty quick 1 hour event. If you want to expand it to longer, you can do something similar, but include a mentorship conversation, right? So 30 minutes of mentors talking about those goals with young people, for example. And then maybe another 20 minutes of shadowing those folks at their jobs. So sitting with them in their offices as they work on or have some of their work calls, following folks through their quality checks if they work at a factory or work somewhere where that's part of their daily life. So you can spend some time doing that and then reflecting and close out. So those are some options for what an in-person event can look like. A virtual event can be pretty similar, but a little more You can spend some time in different areas, right? So you can have 20 minutes as a guided mentorship conversation. Maybe you put folks in breakout rooms, and you bring them back to the main room to have a large group discussion, right? You can have folks share out what they talked about, what they learned, what they're excited about. You can create guided questions for them in that main room. And then they can have time to, again, reflect and close out. Your event does not need to look like this exactly. There is, again, so many different ways to run a DMD event. I just wanted to give everyone kind of a large, zoomed out view of what it could look like. Are there any questions before I move on to our next slide? Okay, I'll move on. So our next slide is some best practices of running a successful and accessible event. I want to acknowledge that I'm talking to a lot of folks on this call who are very well versed and part of the disability community and are very well versed in understanding what best practices are to run an event, but I think it's always important to really ensure that you are thinking through how to make your event as available to everyone in your community as possible. This is not an exhaustive list. If you are looking for more support, again, we can work together and talk through what your situation is and your venue and make sure that we are supporting you in figuring out accessibility. So in-person events, some best practices can include having American Sign Language interpreters, having captioning across real time, so CART, ensuring that your participants are able to view CART screens or ASL interpreters unobstructed. So being really intentional about how you're laying out a room. Um, there's also physical access, right? So including making sure that you have accessible parking, barrier-free ramps, accessible push-button access to doors, wide width doors, that there are accessible bathrooms that folks can get to without having to navigate an unfamiliar large space, right? Another best practice is to mask and test for COVID and sickness mitigation. Of course, this is not a requirement of DMD events, but it is a very important tool to, number one, support the safety and health of the disability community and to include folks who may be hesitant to come to in-person events. By showing in your flyering, in your recruitment for these events, it is that you are committed to masking and testing. You are signifying to folks who may be hesitant to come that you are trying to mitigate their risk for COVID and other illnesses, such as the flu. Another best practice is to include access in your event flyers and registration info. So everything we just talked about. It's to provide another best practice is to provide digital and written resources for folks so that if you are only relying on a screen, you are not missing folks who can't read the screen for some reason, right? Maybe your screen is too small, maybe your space is too large, and everything therein. So it's really helpful to have backups of your resources, written and digital for folks to use. So those are just some in-person events best practices. And again, we can help you with building this as you're thinking about your event. For virtual events, it's very similar. So ASL best practice or other best practices, ASL, CART captioning, ensuring that you're using a platform that is screen reader supported. So that can be Zoom, Google Meet, for example. It's providing written instructions for people to reference when they're in breakout rooms. So you're not just sending folks to a breakout room without them knowing what they're doing or having access to your instructions. It's also visual descriptions of each person sharing, including alt text on images, monitoring the chat and reading out responses. It's emailing agendas in PDF or Word docs in advance. So there are a few differences, but also a lot of similarities between virtual and in-person events. Hybrid is really the best of both worlds, but it does include some intentionality in how you're structuring your space. So if you are interested in a hybrid event, please let me know, and I'd love to support you in thinking that through. Any questions before we move on? Okay. Our next slide says other important info at the top. So some important info. Some DMD hosts are workplaces. Some are nonprofits. Others are individuals. You may need to do community outreach to source your mentees, your mentors, or your funders. So we can support you in this, in thinking through where's a good place to reach out to mentees in my community? Where is an opportunity to collaborate with an independent living center, for example, or with a youth serving organization? Where might I find a local grant or a regional grant to support me in paying for interpreters or captioning, right? So those are some ways that we can support you in doing that research and thinking through what your plan might be. Our next bullet point, it is important to note that AAPD does not provide funding for these events, but if funding is an issue, please let us know. We want to know what challenges you're facing as you are planning your event. And lastly, capturing feedback is really, really important and vital to ensuring that your event runs smoothly and to inform you about how to improve or change your plans for next year. We have a 2025 DMD toolkit that will include surveys for you to use. You can submit them via a Google form that will be provided to you. So all of this will come to you. Our goal for our DMD toolkit is early September. So we will reach out to you with all of that information as soon as it is finalized. Any other questions before I move on? Okay. Our next slide says group brainstorm. So I am going to ask you to expand a little beyond your comfort zone today, and that is to be in a breakout room and share with other folks about the DMD event that you are thinking of. If you do not have one designed yet, that's totally okay. You can start that brainstorming process now. You can start thinking and dreaming about what that can look like. So in this slide, it says, in your breakout room, I'd like you and your group to build your own DMD event together. So you can identify someone to take notes. You also, if you do not want to take notes, totally optional, but I will ask folks to share, one or two to share a little bit about what they talked about when we come back. But some guiding questions are, is my event in person or virtual? How am I reaching out to the disability community to find young people and students who might be interested? What workplace or field am I thinking of for mentors? What does my DMD event look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? And those kinds of questions can help you think through, how many folks are you envisioning in this space? How old are they? Are they laughing? Are they sharing? Are they listening? What does that look like in practice? And what challenges might you face? So that could be budgetary, it could be capacity, it could be finding a venue or finding, folks who can physically support at the event. So thinking through these things together is what I'm asking folks to do in a breakout room. So I'm going to put these in the chat for you all. If that's helpful, you can use them. You can also refer to the PDF that I dropped, and both have these questions. So we are at the 40-minute mark. And so I'm going to ask folks to have about 10 minutes to share together and work on this. And if you need more time, just let me know. I want to be very mindful of everyone's time, so we can't go too much past this, but for the next 10 minutes, you will be with your group, and I encourage you to share out. You do not have to share your screen if you do not want to, or show your screen if you do not want to, but I do encourage you all. I know that you may have never interacted with folks in your group, so feel free to share your name, a quick visual description if you do share your screen, and where you are coming from in planning this event. Any questions before we move into breakout rooms? Okay, welcome. Okay. Thank you, everyone. I know it is not always fun to be yanked out of your breakout room, but I am really excited that it seems like folks were staying in there. I would love to spend a few minutes hearing from what you shared in your breakout room. So, is there anyone who would like to share what you talked about with your event, what you're thinking about? And again, please use the raised hand feature or you can write it in the chat. Oh, great. Kate, I see your hand is raised. Go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. My name is Kate. My video is off, so I don't need to give a description, and my pronouns are they, them. Um, Me and my colleague in this call work for Disability Rights Maine, and I think the thing that we see going wrong in these kind of events more often than not is that youth aren't involved in helping plan them.
Mm,
Um, and the people, like, I think adults are super well-meaning, but the people that we think to invite as guest speakers aren't the people that the young people want to talk to. Um, so just having that intergenerational planning from the beginning. Also focusing on relationship building because if the people in the room care about each other, they're more likely to have conversation and follow up. If you're just there to achieve your purpose of like having a mentoring day, you're probably not going to get the outcomes as if it was more organic. Thank you.
this is Gabi. Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciated what you shared about intergenerational planning. If you have the ability to connect with the young people and students who are going to attend the event before the event, I invite you to even spend just a couple of minutes talking with them about who they'd like to see at the event. This can be as simple as sitting down with young folks and asking them, what are the kinds of careers you want to learn about? Who are the kind of mentors that you want to talk to? And really using their guidance and their advice as you plan. So I really appreciate that you shared that, Kate. I think it's really important to include young people's voices in your event planning. It is a little more difficult if you are planning an event where you do not have access to the young folks to speak with or plan until they come. If you are in that situation and you would like some just general advice, I am always happy to help. I've worked in youth programming for most of my career, and so I can give you a little insight about I think what feels most responsive, especially for high school and college-aged young folks. So thank you so much, Kate. Does anyone else care to share about what you talked about in your group? I'd love to hear from one more person before we move on to our final closing. And you can share in the chat as well. You do not need to share out. I see Kai raised his hand. So Kai, take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Kai. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm also off camera. So in our group, we spoke a bit on we didn't get through all the questions, but for the first few, we were speaking about different ways to reach out to the community. One idea we had was reaching out to local colleges and universities to connect with student organizations. Another was um, one of our group members is based in Colorado and told us a bit about some of the transition programs that 18 to 21-year-old students can go through to learn about job fields and entering the workforce, which we thought could be another good place to start. And then a third idea of looking directly to workforce training programs or nonprofits who work directly with job seekers to meet them there.
I was unmuted. Apologies. This is Gabi. I was saying thank you so much, Kai. Those are all really great options for starting points when you're thinking about where to find mentees. I will say that if you are really interested in connecting with a college, there are a lot of different avenues to reach. I have had quite a few conversations with students in undergraduate and graduate programs who are trying to plan their own DMD events. So if you are really interested in that, please connect with me because I'd love to see if there's an opportunity to connect you with a college student who's thinking about DMD in their area, because there is a great opportunity for collaboration. So thanks, Kai. Those are great ideas. I want to now move on to our next slide, which is just spending some time before we close out. I know we only have a few minutes. And again, we can talk one-on-one about anything we talked through today or any other questions that you have. At the end of this, I'm going to drop a link to my Calendly, which you can use to schedule a time to meet with me directly. I will also be giving you some other important links, but I want to give you a moment. Are there questions that you would like to bring to the main group, or questions that you're thinking about as you're planning your event or thinking about your event? Go ahead and use the chat or the raise hand feature. And please limit your question, if possible, to about a minute so we can be mindful of time. Any questions? And if you don't have questions, that's great too. I will say, as folks are thinking, I see Kate in the chat wrote, in Maine, there are several neurodivergent clubs at our college campuses. I hope they can partner. That is a great place to think of, Kate, for finding mentees. So I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing as we enter our final few minutes together. So if there are no questions, again, you can go into our account, use my Calendly, set up a time to meet with me. A link to that is here in the chat. You can also, if you do decide to run a DMD event, you are raring to go. You can fill out our coordinator sign-up form. This form is how we track which DMD events are happening around the country so we can support you in planning, in promoting, and in other ways. That link is also in the chat. And if you would like to leave some feedback about today's orientation, I'd love to hear about how we can improve this. This is our first year having an orientation for Disability Mentoring Day. Your feedback's always really important. I love a survey, so please feel free to fill that out. And that is in the chat as well. So again, I will follow up with all of these links and with another copy of these slides after our time together. So that will likely come to your inbox tomorrow morning. And if you would like to stay on, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes and I can talk to you one-on-one if you'd like. But I really appreciate all of your time here today. Thank you so much. And I really hope that you have a great DMD event planned or that you're working on. I'm really excited for what you all plan. So thank you. And if you don't have any questions, have a great rest of your evening. And I appreciated having you here.